Hi everyone, it's Linda Caranzelis, the NVLD and neurodivergent pioneer, and I have not been here in a very long time, and I want to explain that to you why. For those of you that don't know me, I'm the author of Misnamed, Misdiagnosed, Misunderstood, all about NVLD, and I'm grateful to have it endorsed by Dr. Ned Hallowell, New York Times bestselling author. And I wanted to start by saying that, as I said, I haven't done YouTube videos in a long time, and I really pulled back because I didn't want to be involved with all the tech and all the algorithms and the posting and, all the correct words. That's not what I do. And it was really burning me out to the point where I just lost my mojo. And I really need to spend my time with helping other people with NVLD, ADHD, and learning disabilities. But I'm back because I realize being silent doesn't serve anyone. I believe that God put me here, and I went through so much pain, and which I'll explain to you why, that I have to speak out. And sure, there might be some of my neurotypical acquaintances that see this, and I'm vulnerable, and it can be uncomfortable, but I have to speak out. This is why I was put here, and I'm not going to stop. So being silent doesn't serve anyone, as I'm not fulfilling my mission here. So, as I said, I pulled back for all those reasons. And I'm wearing camouflage today because I want to point out that those with NVLD and some people with ADHD, depending where they are, mild, moderate, severe, and learning disabilities, we do mask and we do camouflage. We want to fit in with other people that's brains work differently. We are neurodivergent. We think, do, and behave differently than other people. And they may, than neurotypicals, who are the majority, that do things the same way. So we can be misunderstood, especially with NVLD, or blurting out with ADHD from impulsivity by other people. And they may assume that we are rude, or when we try to explain we're victims, but everybody's comparing each other to their own baseline. So they don't really understand because they haven't walked in our shoes. And I'm just noticing that the lighting's off. But again, I'm not going to worry about tech. So I want to explain that I went through that, that I do camouflage as well with other people. But it's very exhausting. You can only do it for a short period of time. When people get to see you on a regular basis, they can see. If it's an acquaintance that you see once in a while and you're smiling and you're laughing, or you don't get a joke, as many with NVLD don't, but not all, and you're just laughing because you didn't get the joke and you don't want to say why, because sometimes when you do, people are like, really, that they kind of think it's funny in a sarcastic way. So we do camouflage, and it takes a lot of effort, and it is exhausting, just like it is for those people on the spectrum, that are higher functioning, formerly known as Asperger's, which higher functioning is a disservice because they're still struggling. So again, that's why I'm wearing the camouflage, because if you are neurotypical, please understand that this is what's happening. And if you think somebody's rude and they communicate differently, there may be an underlying reason why, because we can't keep the camouflage up 24/7. So that's why I disappeared. And also that tech work doesn't give me any dopamine. It's just so boring and so time consuming that I really get dopamine from talking, as a lot of people with NVLD were very highly verbal. And helping the people that I work with on a daily basis. And that's what I love to do. And I'm sharing with you, this is really important. I'm a professional that works in the field, but I'm also someone that lives with NVLD. So I really do understand, as a lot of people just don't get it, even professionals, and they're kind people. It doesn't mean that they're not, but it can be hurtful when a professional doesn't understand, but they think that they do because that's painful to you. You're not getting what you need. So I had something happen recently that I want to share. It was really, really painful. I've been friends with two people who don't know each other for about the same time, 7 years. And these friendships ended. And these were people who understood that I had NVLD and that my mind worked differently, but they really didn't understand. They knew that I needed clarity. They knew that I needed verbal explanation, because with NVLD, we're not, I would say the large percentage of us are not picking up on nuances, and tone of voice is especially hard for me to pick up on. Sarcasm, joking, and so we don't pick up a lot of that, and we rely on the verbal. But just because they read my book and they, really wanted to support me, doesn't mean that they really understood it and the pain that it causes. So, and I'll say that we're a work in progress. Just because I specialize in this doesn't mean that my brain is different. We can learn how to cope. We can learn social skills, but our brains are different and they're not going to change. It's chronic. And we can only learn how to manage and cope. That's why I'll never talk about 5 things you can do to relieve yourself of NVLD or ADHD. Just like these 5 quick things and you're going to be okay. Because it's just not true. It's a journey and a process. So again, with this happened in the past couple months, and one happened in the past week. And it was really, really painful. And at first I blamed myself completely, because we tend to blame ourselves. There's been a lot of misunderstanding conversations by the time we reach adulthood. A lot of times where we're misunderstood or people think we're rude. And there's been a lot of pain of rejection. So, it's layer upon layer upon layer, just like a statue. A chip here or there doesn't do anything, but all over the place, the statue crumbles. And so I was triggered. And all that came up. And I immediately blamed, what did I do wrong? Nobody likes me. It's my fault. This always happens to me. And so it's very hard, I've come to the conclusion over the years, to be friends with neurotypical people unless they themselves know somebody like a family member. And I'm putting that out there and I'm saying it, and many people might not disagree with me, but I don't care. So that it is really hard. If they don't have that empathy and compassion. And so, like I said, these 2 people knew, and I blamed myself at first, and all that pain came up. And rejection sensitivity dysphoria is just as painful as physical pain, or even more. And our body goes into an alarm system, and that's what happened. And like I said, it's caused me a lot of pain. And it's not easy for me to say this, but again, I'm going to say it because I know a lot of you out there are struggling with this. And you need to hear it from a professional that has NVLD. You need to hear it from somebody, because not much is known about it. And so the pain has been tough. And after I analyzed it, I really realized logically, my brain emotionally didn't have time to do this. It just went right into that gut backstab feeling of pain, that these 2 people just had their own issues, very different issues, very different people, but from their own past background experiences and what they were coping with, their lens of seeing something was a different way, and it wasn't my fault. Now, that doesn't mean there's been times where I've been misunderstood, or I communicated something wrong under the way, or somebody misunderstood me. But in this case, this is what it was. And like I said, they both know that I need clarity, and I'm sure they both know, well, maybe they don't know that this really hurts, because if they don't really understand it, they don't know how much this hurts. When we need the words, we need closure. We only get the majority of communication by the words, most of us. That there's different types of NVLD, but we need the words because we're not picking up on the tone of voice. Like I said, sarcasm, tone of voice is very hard for me. And we don't pick up on all the nonverbal stuff. Like, not responding to you is an answer. And we tend to want to keep explaining because we see all the little details, but we don't get the big picture. It's like the puzzle's laid out on the floor and we don't know how to put it together to get the big picture. You can't see the forest from the trees. And we want to keep explaining it, but sometimes we can't do that. And we just have to take that maybe we are being ghosted and maybe it isn't because of us. And, it's very hard to discern when it's due to NVLD and when it isn't, like I said. So that pain has been there, and I wanted to share that with you. And I know that it will pass. And I know that it will pass, and it always pass, but the rumination and the pain right now is still here. And what I want to say to you is if you have somebody, if you're a professional or you have a family member that has NVLD, do not tell them that everybody with NVLD has these issues, because they don't. Yes, this is a different case. Yes, everything depends on the situation. There's so many different factors and variables. It's not just black and white. But you can't say to somebody, oh, this happens to people that don't have it. Yeah, it does. But we have a hard time discerning that, and that makes us feel really misunderstood, and it is invalidating us. There's a better way to say that to someone. How can we look at this and break it down and acknowledge their feelings and then kind of analyze it like you're a detective, and then say, after you acknowledge and validate the difficulties, then kind of talk about it and break it down when the person is calmer. But to say that is going to be a trigger, and they're going to get very upset. And that itself can elicit RSD, because we're not understood by other people. It's not in the Diagnostic Statistical Manual yet as an official disorder, but it soon will be. So please don't say that as a professional or a parent. I know you mean well, but it really is hurtful. And that's why, again, I'm speaking out, because it's more powerful to me to speak out than it is to stay silent. So I want to point out that what happened was the aftermath of, even though I realized it, but what it took for me to get there, the processing of it, the confusion and the constant thinking about it. I'm getting upset right now. That was the really painful part. And so I, had to calm myself down, because in a way, in different ways, these two people were part of my support system. And no, I did not over rely on them at all. And I'm very conscious of that. But I do have someone that really does get it. And thank God for that person. And you know who you are, because I don't think I would be doing as well without that understanding right now. Because I too need to be validated during these times that are difficult. And yes, again, we can cope and manage it. And I do teach people that, but it still happens to me. And I will never say that it doesn't. And I don't think anybody wants to work with somebody like that. They want someone like me who understands them and can relate and then break it down. So getting to that point was very difficult. And that lack of clarity lands much harder for us with NVLD and others who are neurodivergent and on the autistic spectrum. So there's a distinction between ADHD and NVLD. And, I have to find that in my notes here because I'm jumping, which is typical, right? With ADHD, we jump from thing to thing. Okay, so ADHD can be severe within itself, mild, moderate, or severe. And as Dr. Ned Hallowell says, it's also a gift that needs to be unwrapped because there's a lot of gifts with it. But with NVLD, the two are interacting with each other together, and that can make it more difficult. ADHD can intensify the emotional reaction with RSD, while NVLD is also impacted by that, and I also have ADHD with NVLD. NVLD affects more how you read the cues and the social nuances. Some people with NVLD may struggle with that because they're not attuned or focused. But the social, the whole breakdown of NVLD, the core of it is the visual-spatial processing differences. And unlike ADHD, with just a rating scale, there is no X-ray, NVLD can clearly be diagnosed by a neuropsychological evaluation. And there is a discrepancy between your perceptual reasoning IQ and your verbal skills. So there is a way to differentiate, and so it really is much harder with NVLD. And again, that's not to minimize anything with anybody with ADHD. So suddenly with the 88, you're feeling the loss. And if it's happened, maybe you blurted something out. I've done that without thinking. Or maybe you forgot somebody's birthday, or you're just not real good with dates, or you're just not following through with your actions because it's just hard enough for you to take care of yourself some days. But then with NVLD, you have all that, and you're really trying to understand and replay it of all those things that you missed because you're missing a lot of nonverbal communication. And that goes with the visual spatial. Now, it is different for everybody with NVLD. They're coming up with different categories right now. So when something ends suddenly, somebody ghosts you, you have to understand that a lack of response is a response. And what we want to do, like I said with NVLD, is we want to explain because words are our world. They're our strength. That's how we cope. So we want to explain. We don't see the forest from the trees. We're just getting the details. Like with the puzzle, it's all strewn over the floor, but we can't get the big picture of what the puzzle is. And that's just making it worse. So we have to understand that maybe some people don't want to hear it. And I'm used to friendships where before you come to a conclusion, you do assume goodwill and the benefit of the doubt. You do discuss it. But to just be cut off like that, they must have known it's very painful, or maybe they didn't. If they don't, I guess they don't really get it, or they wouldn't do that because they are good people. But it was really due to their own personal issues, just like we all have them. It wasn't anything that I did in these cases by mistake or misread. So I want to share with you on page 153 in my book, I talk about the law of numbers and probability. We can't always be wrong all the time. It's not always our fault because we have NVLD, but we feel like it is because it's so hard to differentiate it because of lacking these skills that we do not have strengths in. But we also have strengths in other skills that others don't have, and I'll do another video on that. So I want you to understand that this isn't like theory. This is lived in the trenches information combined with professional experience. I have a lot more to say. I said it's not edited, but I would like you to ask other people, mention it to other people that if this has been helpful, to like, to share, to comment, because I need your help. I am not going to be spending time on that. It is extremely time consuming and it takes me away from what I love to do, but I need to get out there. I need to be a voice so that you and your kids and your family can be understood and validated because you really need to hear it. And I know that you're not hearing it. I know that. And I wish I would have heard it. And this book isn't anything to impress you. It's the life manual that I wrote for you that I wish I would have had when I was growing up. And I talk about that in my book, a lot. There's mostly stories of people and how they have overcame and managed. So that's what it's all about. So if you can help me in any way, or if you are NVLD and you have these skills and you want to make a difference, please contact me because we can all work together. It's just one thing, one voice, and one action, and you can make a difference by helping me to help other people and get this message out there because we run on a different operating system. I was closing this, but I wanted to mention this. The world runs on Windows, but we run on our own NS system, which I call a neural system. And that's how we operate. So anytime you're in the minority, it's going to be more difficult. We have to work harder to thrive, but we can. And our operating systems are just different. They're not, different isn't worse or better. It's just different and it's misunderstood. So there's nothing wrong with your operating system. It's just that you need to be understood and there needs to be empathy and compassion because if you can work the way that your brain works, you can be successful. And that's what it's all about. And sometimes that's hard in a neurotypical world. I'm not going to say sometimes. It is hard in a neurotypical world, and I'm not going to minimize that. But I'm going to be back, and I'm going to be sharing more as soon as I can. So please like and share. And if you have any of these skills and you want to help me on the mission, please contact me and let me know what you want to hear about and comment here. And I will be back soon, and I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that this has helped you. If you needed to hear this, please let me know. Bye for now.